right. Well, welcome to April. Can you believe it?
No.
Weren't we just having candlelight service? Phew, man, here we are, April, springtime in Arizona. Our weather's turning very lovely. And today we're celebrating the Easter story with my talk, Living from a Higher Vibration. Living from a higher vibration. And that is our theme for this entire month. As we continue our exploration of joyous living, we'll be discussing how increasing our vibration, our personal vibration, increases our joy. Now, today is about the life and the teaching of Jesus, who we also know as the Christ. And in our philosophy, the science of mind, Ernest says the Christ is defined as universal idea, and each one becomes the Christ to the degree we surrender a limited sense of life to divine realization of wholeness and unity with good Spirit God. So this is the Christ consciousness that we talk about at Centers for Spiritual Living and in the Science of Mind teaching, that Jesus is that enlightened being who was so aligned with his oneness and his wholeness in God that he knew of no separation. And that is the distinction, is not believing in that separation that many of us have been taught, that we are separate from the divine. Jesus was an example of not believing that. He was connected. He lived in what we might call Kingdom 4 consciousness, God as me. God as me. So if you recall his life, the birth story is our Christmas story, our Christmas celebration. And his death and resurrection, of course, is the Easter story. And today I want to look at 3 of his core teachings that I think have really transformed our understanding of God. Only 3 of them. He had a lot. We're going to go with 3 of them today. So his ministry, it was brief. It was only 3 years that he was actively ministering, right? And he was an example of living from this higher vibration, of expressing his full potential in life. And what do we mean by higher vibration? We're going to talk about this all month, so we might as well talk about today, what does this mean? Basically, it's our energy or our overall state of being. Our state of being. Everything in the universe is made up of energy, right? Would you agree? We know that. It's all made of energy, and it's all vibrating at different frequencies. It's all vibrating at different frequencies. Even the things that appear to be solid, right, are truly not when we get down to the subatomic level and look at the particles and things, and that includes us. If we were able to see our bodies under a very high-powered microscope, we would see that we're a bunch of moving particles always dancing around, right? And so this is all to do with that field of quantum study and sciences that we're beginning to learn about. So the higher the frequency of our energy or our vibration, the lighter that we feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. We also don't experience the material as much. We don't feel the physicality of our bodies. We may not feel pain and discomfort in our body when we're at that higher vibration, because it's like we're a little bit above that attachment to the physical matter that we're used to toting around, so to speak. Overall, life takes on a more positive quality for us. Now, you may know this feeling as falling in love. If you've ever fallen in love, those first days and months of falling in love, and you feel like you're walking on air, right? And you're just above it all, and the birds are singing, and the butterflies are landing, the sun is shining, and you're just vibrating at this really high, incredible level. Nothing bothers you, right? Yeah. That's the experience that we're talking about. Maybe it's a bucket list vacation you've been planning forever, and it's finally here, and you just feel that energy rising in you, like you're vibrating at a higher level. Or maybe it's a spiritual experience where you go so deeply into connection that you forget your separation, the feeling of separation, and you're united in the oneness and wholeness of the divine, and you have that numinous experience of God. These are all ways that we may be familiar with raising our vibration or experiencing a higher vibration of life. The opposite side of that, of course, is that lower vibration, and you can almost feel the lower vibration. Things slow down. It's almost like notes in music. You know, the heavier notes are longer, a little more perhaps sloth-like even. So as we look at the life of Jesus from the Bible stories that we know, we can see that his energy was vibrating at a pretty high level for the 3 years that we know about of his ministry. And we might say, like Esther Hicks Abraham, if you're familiar with her work, you've probably heard her say he was tuned in, tapped in, and turned on, right? You've heard her say that, and Jesus was certainly all of those things. It's said that he was a carpenter turned rabbi. He was a carpenter turned rabbi when he began his teaching, and that started right after he was baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist, right? And so then he went out and he began to recruit his disciples, the 12 that would follow him, that would support him, travel with him, eventually betray and deny him, right? He brought those 12 together. And for the next 3 years, he traveled around the countryside all over the Middle East there. And he was teaching, and he was using parables and stories and his actions, his activities, and the miracles that he created. And he had such an understanding of his wholeness and his unity in God that he was able to demonstrate very miraculous things, if you know the stories. And he did not discriminate or judge. He hung out with everybody. He didn't care, right? Didn't discriminate, didn't judge. He was a healer, and he freely shared that healing with folks, his gifts. And he was a spiritual man and really a pretty cool dude when you think about it. Yeah, pretty cool dude. Now, one of his most powerful teachings is that God is not separate, because he knew that at such a deep personal level. And that was his teaching. God is not separate. God is within. God is within. Now, in Luke 17, 20, 21, he says, when some of the Pharisees asked Jesus when the kingdom of God would come, he answered and said to them, the kingdom of God does not come by observation. Neither will they say, behold, it is here, behold, it is there. For behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Now, that's a pretty radical statement. If you go back to when he lived, the scripture of the day was the Old Testament. They were still teaching Moses and the Old Testament. And if you remember, Moses and that teaching was based on God in a box, as I like to say. God was in a box because they were herdspeople, and they traveled with their sheep around from place to place, following the water and the vegetation to feed their sheep. So they had God in a box that they took with them. And God lived in the tent of the congregation, or the tabernacle. And only the priests could go in there and talk to God, and then they would go tell everybody else what God said. And then they built temples, or a house of God, which is why we still call it that today, the house of God. It's the house where God lives. And so to tell these Pharisees, these priests of the day, that that's all wrong. There's a new covenant, kids. God lives within. Now, I don't know about you. When you first heard about this teaching, if you came from another faith tradition, that was pretty radical for me. When I first came into the science of mind and was told that God lived within me, I was like, whoa, what? Because I'd been told in the Methodist church that God either lived in the church or lived in heaven. And that was outside of me. And God was perfect and I was a sinner. And God couldn't possibly be in me because I was a sinner, right? That was the basis of the teaching. So when I started coming in science of mind and being told God lives within you, you're whole, perfect, and complete, it took a while to stop looking for the potential lightning bolt coming down to strike me, right? Because it took a while to change my thinking. It sounded true, it felt right, but to really get my mind around it and to not, unconsciously start to look at the ceiling for lightning bolts, it took a while. It took a while. So recognize the truly radical nature of that revelation of Jesus to the Pharisees in that quote. Truly, truly revelational. So how have you embodied this ancient idea of God within you? How have you embodied it? have you accepted the magnitude of that statement in your life? When we think about the divine, we use all of those wonderful descriptors. It is infinite. It is infinite intelligence and wisdom and love and peace and harmony and joy, and all of that's in me. All of that's right here in you. How have you embodied that? How much more could you embody it to begin to become more aligned with your source and reveal that Christ consciousness? And this is also what we mean in our purpose statement. You repeated that this morning. Our purpose at Scottsdale CSL is to awaken to our spiritual magnificence. And that means that we awaken fully to the God presence within us, and that we live from that awareness of God within. Imagine if we did that 24/7, how different our lives might be. How different our lives might be. Recognizing that all of that is right here with us all of the time. Every thought we have, every action we take, every activity that we do, every desire that we have, God's right here within us already, and we're in alignment with that. Powerful, isn't it? Yeah, very powerful. So one of the ways that we can realize this presence within is to use our spiritual practices that we teach you. That's why we teach those spiritual practices, is to help us to become more aware of our own divinity within, to open our hearts and minds more deeply to discover God and to build that relationship. If you've been around a while, you've heard me describe God as a relationship. You know, it's not something outside of ourselves. It's a relationship with infinite love within us. And one of the most powerful science of mind technologies we have, of course, is our spiritual mind treatment. Our spiritual mind treatment. And this actually helps us to prove another of Jesus' teaching. The second one this morning is, timeless truth I tell you, whoever believes in me, those works which I have done, you will do also, and you will do greater works than these. And that is from John 14:12. Now, Jesus manifested some pretty impressive miracles, right? Turned water into wine, walked on water. And then even his disciple Peter walked on water too, right? So Peter was walking on water like Jesus was until what happened? He got afraid. His belief said, this is not possible. And he began to sink. Much like the story we told last week of the woman whose vision had been healed. And she kept saying, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, I can't believe it. Until what happened? Her body said, you can't see anymore. And that fear, that same I can't believe it happened to Peter, and he began to sink. This idea can be really tough for us to embody. This and more you will do also. Turning water into wine? I'd like to know that trick. But, you know, I need a recipe, I need the equipment, I need the grapes, I need the yeast and the sugar and the time, right? It's got to take time. Well, Jesus didn't need any of that. He didn't need any of that. All he said was, go fill up those jugs and take a ladle of that over to the bridegroom. And by the time it got from water in the jug to ladle to the bridegroom, it was wine. That's all he needed. That's all he needed. Now, there's a whole lot of wonderful metaphysical stuff in that story, but we're not going to go there today. But the point is that Jesus didn't need anything other than his belief, because he was so centered and connected in spirit. So centered in spirit. Sometimes, though, we get stuck on things that we really know we have the power to do, like healing, right? Like healing. We believe we can heal a scratch. You know, it's going to heal. My body knows what to do. It can take care of that. Or maybe I have a cold, and it's going to take care of that. But give me something else, something that I think is bigger and more difficult to heal, some dis-ease or illness within my body, and I might begin to go, whoa, I start sinking like Peter, right? Start sinking like Peter. So that's where we can get hung up on this. Yet Jesus healed the blind and the lame, and he even raised the dead with Lazarus when he said, Yoo-hoo, Lazarus, come forth. And he got up and he came out, right? The best way that we can truly begin to embody this idea is we have to expand our consciousness. We have to. That's the only way that we can do it. We have to get beyond our current comfort zone, rise above our limited thoughts and beliefs, and begin to accept this powerful instruction. We're pretty connected, tapped into our reality. We know how things work. Up is up, down is down, this is big, this is small. We kind of have that going on. So when things begin to come outside of that normal reality that we've bought into, we begin to go, not possible, right? Those of you who've been in book study, we were talking about infinite possibilities, right? We live in the field of infinite possibilities. Jesus operated in the field of infinite possibilities. And so this teaching, whoever believes in me, that means whoever believes in yourself. Me is you. Me is you. When Jesus was if you read the Bible from the perspective of everything that Jesus said, you're saying to yourself. It will change the perspective of all of that for you. It's very empowering to do that. When you read this one, whoever believes in me, those works which I have done, I will do also. When you believe in you, just like Peter, you can walk on water and stay there. Ernest Holmes was big in the science of mind of telling us to prove these principles. So proving the principles, expanding our comfort zone, expanding our consciousness through practice is the way that we build. Oh, gee, I healed a scratch. Oh, that's a big gash. I can heal that too. Oh, I've got a headache. I can heal that. Oh, I've got some financial challenges. I can heal that too. Oh, I'm calling in love. I can heal that too. Right? We can begin to expand our awareness and our consciousness. The third powerful teaching of Jesus is the commandment. It was one of his last, actually. It was after the Last Supper, and it was when he was visiting with the disciples before he was arrested and taken away. And that commandment was to love one another. Love one another. And that may sound simple, but if you think about it, again, the scriptures of the day were the Old Testament and the Ten Commandments. Here's Jesus coming in and saying, I give you a new commandment. Love one another. Well, that basically kind of summarizes commandments 5 through 10. It summarizes 5 through 10. 5 is honoring mom and dad. 6 is not to murder. 7 is no adultery. 8 is don't steal. 9 is don't lie. And 10 is don't covet. If you loved everyone, you wouldn't do any of those things, right? So what did he do? He took away the loophole. He took away the loophole. If it wasn't on the 10, it's free range, right? I can do anything that's not on the 10. But now he says, love one another. Love one another. Powerful, powerful commandment. He repeats it numerous times in John. You can see the 3 quotes here. So he was definitely making his point. And we can definitely forget that point today, can't we? I can love these people, but not those people. Because these people don't have the same politics I have, or these people don't like the same music I like, or these people don't practice the same faith tradition that I practice, or they don't have the same sexual orientation that I have. So, right? We can start to do that, whereas this teaching is high vibration is love. Love one another. And it doesn't mean we have to have a touchy-feely romantic relationship with everybody. It's probably best if we don't. But it does mean that we raise ourselves in that vibration of love and recognize that we are all sons and daughters of the Spirit of God. And that as such, we are interconnected, interrelated to each other all throughout our planet, again, at this higher vibration. Plants, animals, everything that is on this planet, love one another. Love one another. Much like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done to you. I was taught that in the first grade. I remember it well. We know that God is love and has created everything from love. And Jesus is, of course, teaching us that love is the key to creating a higher vibration for our lives. Love is the answer. Love is the answer. So when we consider these three core teachings that Jesus lived by, God is within. These things and more and greater you will do, and love one another. We can see how he was a higher vibration in his life and how he taught us through the example of his life to be the same. Follow these teachings, follow these truths, and you too will live at the higher vibration. Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living and the author of The Science of Mind that we teach from. And he says, Jesus was a consciously cosmic soul who recognized his unity with all. He knew that love must become universal before it can reach its maturity. Hence, he said that all who live in harmony with the truth are brothers and sisters in it. And that's exactly what he said. That sums up the ministry very well, I thought. It says, 1 Corinthians says, and the greatest of these is love. The greatest of these is love. When we can embody the true oneness that God is, understanding that it is within us, as us, right? As us. And when we love one another without exclusion, we too shall rise from the cross of the crucifixion into a new and transformed world. Because that's what that story is about, is the transformation from material to spiritual, to recognizing the teaching of love moves us into the spiritual revelation of who we are, the being born again into our spiritual awakening. So let's take a look today at how we might be able to raise our vibration this week in our spiritual practices. And if you'd like to sign up for the Monday Mindful group, if you haven't done so already, you can sign up in the lobby. Folks online, you can send me an email and I'll add you to the list. And this just gives you the quotes and notes and some more practices on how to practice these principles this week. So number one is a centering practice. And a centering practice will help us to understand that God is within. God is within. And it's a way that we learn to balance our inner and outer worlds, to be observers of the outer world. You hear us talk about that, the observer, that there's our consciousness, and then there's the observer of our consciousness. And it's when we learn to center our attention and our intention. We have some intentions we set in January, right? Are we paying attention to our intentions to see them manifest in our lives? Yeah. So that means that we're beginning to live successfully from the inside out and create our outer reality. So this week, be still and focus your attention inward to connect with Source within you. Be still and know. Number two is our spiritual mind treatment, learning those 5 steps of our very powerful spiritual technology of affirmative prayer. And that really helps us to anchor in Jesus' teaching of these things and more you shall do also. Learning those 5 steps: recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release. And you hear Daniel and I do prayers every Sunday and move through those steps of the process. And the key for us is that realization and our belief about the reality of that realization. The belief about it is what causes the manifestation. We have these flyers in the lobby. It's the affirmative prayer treatment. The inside gives you the 5 steps of treatment. It gives you a sample treatment to look at, and then it gives you space where you can create your own affirmative prayer. And on the back is our teaching symbol and explaining how the creative process works. So pick up one of these, and if you are not a regular affirmative prayer, maybe try it this week and write down your results of what happens, how it's working for you. If you have questions or you'd like to pray with someone, you could contact Daniel or myself. We'll pray with you this week. Affirmative prayer is a very powerful practice for us. Number 3 is practice sacred service. And this is for our embodiment of love one another. Sacred service is a spiritual practice because it's a source of love and creativity. Most of us are in service to this community in some way, and you know when you serve that we are creative in our expression of that. And it is spiritual practice because we're giving of ourselves. We're giving of ourselves. We're allowing Spirit to give through us when we are in sacred service. And ways that we can practice sacred service this week might be picking up after yourself rather than littering or cluttering your home or office. Let others go first in traffic. Help someone else. Give directions to someone that might be lost. Bring your neighbor's trash can or mail in. Do a random act of kindness. You can volunteer here. If you're looking for something to do, you can help us next Sunday with the picnic. We need some volunteers for that. And sacred service is a daily practice to reveal the divine presence within you. So practicing these principles each day will raise your vibration and transform your life as we rise above our beliefs into cosmic reality, as Ernest Holmes says. So we'll close today with a quote from Ernest. He says, "The two great commandments are to love God and each other. On these hang all the law and the prophets. Love is a complete unity with life, and we cannot enter this state unless we are in unity with all that lives, for all life is one. To love God alone is not enough, for this would exclude our brothers and sisters. To love our brothers and sisters alone is not sufficient, for this would be too limited a concept of God. When we realize that God and humanity are one and not two, we shall love both. We shall love humanity as an expression of God, and God as the life principle in all." So it is. Would you join me in an affirmative prayer this morning? How good it is that we gather on this Easter morning in celebration of a transformed life. We recognize that God is all that there is and is in, through, and as all. It is the infinite power, principle, source, harmony, love, joy, intelligence, wisdom, order, activity. It is everything. It is all that there is, has been, or shall be. And all of that is right here, right now, present in me. All of it is right here, right now, present in each one of us gathered here today, each one of us gathering online this morning, and gathering later in the week or some later date to listen to this program. For we know that God is always within. It lives, moves, and has its being in us, through us, as our life. And we express it individualized in individual and unique ways as our life through our freedom of choice, freedom of choosing. And what a magnificent gift that is, recognizing this power and presence that lives right within us. And so knowing that, I speak my word for and about each of us, knowing, claiming, and accepting truth revealed, that we recognize God is within us, that we recognize that we can and do more and greater than those things that Jesus did, those great examples that he provided us of infinite possibilities available to us, that we plug in, tune in to that infinite wisdom and intelligence, and that we release any fear or disbelief and claim our belief in our oneness with God. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today that they are seeking prayer support around, a desire, a change, a healing, that whatever needs to be healed is healed, that if there's clarity, that it is revealed in ways that are easily understandable, that if it's love and relationship, that is brought forward in dynamic ways. And if it's creative expressing, that all of the creativity of the divine flows through us now. And that we're each prospered in so many ways in our lives. Through financial good, financial flow, through circulation, through service, through love. And it is with such a grateful heart, so filled with gratitude and thanksgiving for this prayer, for its manifestation, for this community, and for the love that God is, that is in me, in each of us, in we, that I just joyfully release this into the action of law. For I know that it's already done, because the word spoken is the word made manifest. And it is done as we believe, and we believe that it is done. And we affirm together. And so it is.